This is Common Sense Radio. Straightforward and no excuses.
All right. Come on now.
This is the Steve Gruber Show.
Call me crazy.
Oh, yeah.
What I said was perfectly right and spot on accurate.
Boy's got a mouth like a cannon, always shooting it all.
Stop. Yeah, stop. I mean, you're way off script.
Got it in me. Gonna quit until it all comes out.
Hey, boy!
Been a long education.
Yeah, you know, it's not cynical. It's common sense.
Pay attention to me when I'm talking to you.
I'm gonna rock the nation. Rock the nation.
Genuine, accountable, and raw. Here is Steve Gruber.
All right, welcome to it. Fox Business News seemed to held a much better debate than what we saw on CNBC recently, wouldn't you say? Yeah, the Fox Business Channel seemed to do a much nicer job. Seemed to do a much nicer job when it came to the candidates. Now, the early polling giving a big boost to Rand Paul, believe it or not, in some of the polling. Rand Paul showing up to debate the top 4 of the 8 on the main stage. Trump, Cruz, Rand Paul, and Marco Rubio. Coming in dead last, Jeb Bush. Barely ahead of him, John Kasich. These two need to figure out how to get some fire in their campaigns or there's going to be trouble, and soon. Carly Fiorina had a couple of decent answers, but Ben Carson also a fairly weak night. As far as the response from viewers, I'm not saying his answers were good or bad. I'm saying he had a flat night when it came to, you know, those watching the debate. We'll get to that. And to help us analyze it today will be Newt Gingrich, former Speaker of the House, the man who authored The Contract with America. He will be here a little bit later on the program today. His wife will be here as well, Callista. So we've got that coming up for you today here on the program, plus a couple of my favorites. Julie Gunlock will be here. Megan Barth will be here. And Congressman Dan Kildee, Democrat from Michigan's 5th District, has introduced legislation to help curb veteran suicides. We'll talk to Congressman Kildee about that here a little bit later in the program. And we'll talk about the debate more here on the program here in a minute as well. But first, it's official. Michigan motorists will be paying more in taxes, and the state will reprioritize, they say, spending under a series of bills actually, signed into law by Governor Rick Snyder. He said it's not just about asking for more revenue, it's about investing in Michigan's future and creating jobs. Certainly not a perfect set of bills, and the governor will be here to talk about this here in the next couple of days as well. But the plan will eventually dedicate an extra $1.2 billion a year to repair and maintain crumbling roads and bridges and infrastructure. But the funding isn't here for quite some time. If you think that this coming summer you're going to see that funding in full swing, you're mistaken. The gas tax doesn't even take effect until 2017, when gas taxes will increase 7.3 cents a gallon. Diesel taxes will jump 11.3 cents, and registration fees will rise by 20% for all cars and trucks, commercial trucks included. So be prepared to be paying a lot more. Those tax increases are projected to generate somewhere around $600 million. Another $600 million will be coming out of the general fund. That shift, that move will begin in 2019. In 2019, that will happen, bringing a total of $1.2 billion into the coffers. Of course, Snyder's pushed for more road funding for 4 years, but my question to you today is this something that you think is good, or is this just the same thing we rejected back on May the 5th? On May the 5th, by a better than 4-to-1 by a better than 4-1 margin. Voters in Michigan, I thought, made pretty clear they were not interested. You and I were not interested in paying more taxes, paying higher fees, having a complicated system. The Republicans took it to mean that we're willing to pay more in taxes, but it has to be simple and clear. This is the first tax increase on gasoline, by the way, since 1997. So it's been a while. The rates will be indexed to inflation. When I had Arlen Meekoff here on the program here just a few days ago, I said, is this a temporary tax or a permanent tax? He hemmed and hawed and said, well, that's not really up to me. The answer being it's a permanent tax. Michigan now finds itself among the highest, the very highest. I'm going to have to see how this stacks up. We're right at the very top compared to other states when it comes to gasoline taxes and how much we pay. At the very top. And I can assure you that many other states like California, New York, and Pennsylvania have a lot more roadways than we do. But we're going to be paying just as much. Some experts believe it would have taken $2 billion a year to actually get the roads fully fixed in Michigan. But this $1.2 billion is the number that everybody seems to, I guess they seem to have a consensus on, that everything is okay with this number. And this number is what it's going to take to get our roads fixed. I guess we're going to find out, because that's the number we're going with, because that's the series of legislation signed by this governor. So that's where we are on it. Speaking of driving, one Michigan lawmaker won't be driving much. Arrested for drunk driving. State Rep John Cavella, a Democrat from Marquette, arrested on Monday near Lansing for driving under the influence, according to a statement released on his behalf. He did say, I'm truly sorry to my wife, family, and constituents for letting them down. I have battled with alcoholism for most of my adult life. My dependence on alcohol has become a problem, and I plan to seek treatment immediately. He was arrested and put in the Clinton County Jail. Undersheriff Larry Giroux said he could neither confirm nor deny the arrest until arraignment, which is likely to happen tomorrow. And Senator Tom Casperson, State Senator Tom Casperson, says he will be seeking the seat being left behind by Dan Benishek, now that he has said he is not going to seek his seat again, just to keep you up on the politics. So Tom Casperson trying to become the next congressman representing the UP in the northern part of Michigan, including Traverse City and that part of the state. From Escanaba to Traverse City, and then all of the UP, District 1. And there you have that. And let's not forget today, as I talked about yesterday, it is Veterans Day 2015. Veterans Day 2015. Make sure you tip your hat to those that have served. Take a moment, shake somebody's hand, and say thank you for those that have served. From all of us here at the Steve Gruber Show, thank you for your service. Without that service, would we even have freedom? The answer is no, we would not. It is a Wednesday, big show ahead, like I said. I'm Steve Gruber. This is the Steve Gruber Show.
Genuine Michigan common sense on display every day.
All right, we'll get some expert analysis of last night's debate on the Fox Business Channel. We'll get that from Newt Gingrich coming up here a little bit later on the program. We'll talk about what he thinks of the candidates, what he thinks of $20 trillion in debt. He's got a new book out. We'll talk about that, of course, as well. The new book, Duplicity. We'll talk about that. And his wife, Callista, has a new book as well. Alice the Elephant discovers how Christmas has been celebrated throughout America's history. So heading into the holiday season, we'll talk about that. One of the things that has dominated the news is the candidate's ability to tell the truth. Of course, Ben Carson has been pounded on the last week or two, just talking about things that he said in his autobiography about his youth and things that happened, episodes of violence, for which CNN said they can find nobody that can talk about him being a violent child. His mother did to back that up in the 90s. But anyhow, he took the opportunity on a question about honesty to focus his comments on Hillary Clinton. Go.
We should vet all candidates. I have no problem with being vetted. What I do have a problem with is being lied about and then putting that out there as truth. And I don't even mind that so much if they do it with everybody, like people on the other side. But, you know, when I look at somebody like Hillary Clinton, who sits there and tells her daughter and a government official that, no, this was a terrorist attack, and then tells everybody else that it was a video. Where I came from, they call that a lie. And
you know, the same's true. Where I came from, they call that a lie, too. I came from not too far from here. We'll get back to some more clips from the debate, and we'll evaluate it, take your feedback on it. But first, we're going to head to David in Grand Rapids on the hotline, on the Common Sense hotline. By the way, that number is 888-900-9966. 888-900-9966. David checking in on the gas tax. David, welcome to the program.
Hey, good morning. You know, it's so frustrating that, you know, whatever he signed into law is just pathetic to me. A real conservative, real Republicans, real legislators would actually say, holy crap, by an 80% margin, that should give us some emboldenment into, we need to start cutting the rest of the government, because I bet you that would, you know, we have a right to do it now. It's kind of ironic when you're going to have news on today with the contract with America was the best thing to cut government and make it smaller and give things back to us, but the media changed it to the contract on America, and we all crumbled like Barney Fife with one little bullet. We shot ourselves in the foot again and again and again. And, you know, it's just frustrating because we gave them a mandate to say, cut government. Don't take any more from us.
I appreciate that, David. I think that's true for a lot of people that are frustrated about this whole series of bills being signed into law, and I appreciate you checking in. Your comments are also welcome at 888-900-9966. Are you frustrated? Are you angry that the governor went ahead and signed into law this whole series of bills that'll provide, and not soon, but will provide within the next 4 or 5 years, roughly $1.2 billion in financing for roads and bridges and infrastructure? Did you vote back on May the 5th? Did you vote against the proposal that was out there then? Do you think this is wholly similar and a problem? Also on the hotline, Brian in Southern Michigan here. Brian, welcome back to the program.
Good morning, Steve. Yeah, the facts are coming out about the University of Missouri, and the facts show that they have no facts except some picture of a fecal swastika, and they have some accusations of some punks in a pickup truck driving through town calling some racial slurs. So, let's see. The president is forced to resign, along with other faculty members. And they have this goofy diversity training program now. It's kind of like, Steve, say your neighbor is popular in town, and he accuses you of murdering somebody. So the cops come arrest you, automatically throw you in jail, and they say, well, you don't have a court, and you don't go to court because your neighbor is popular, so we're going to take his word over your word. So you have no rights whatsoever. That's what's going on here in our country, Steve.
I agree with you, Brian. Thanks for checking in. There's a lot of truth to that. A lot of truth to what Brian said. I can say this. There is no evidence. There is no evidence that the University of Missouri denies equal opportunity to its black students. No evidence whatsoever that Missouri denies equal opportunity to black students. Those black students, like every other student on campus, are surrounded by what I would call lavish educational resources available to them for the asking on a colorblind basis. The university's faculty and administrators are surely among the most prejudice-free, well-meaning group of adults in human history. Thousands of Chinese students, I am sure, would undoubtedly do anything for the chance to be systematically oppressed by the University of Missouri's stupendous laboratories and research facilities and funding. There is something for you to ponder right there. Now, while the overcoddled and overprivileged entitled students demand to be recognized as the victims they think they are, I have to say I agree. They are victims. That might surprise you, but I do believe these University of Missouri students are, in fact, victims. They are victims of piss-poor parenting and of a society all too willing to accommodate this senseless and, dare I say, baseless pile of charges of systemic racism. And let me say this to my liberal friends. Prove otherwise. Prove otherwise that the University of Missouri does not provide ample educational resources on a colorblind basis. You can go do your research. A bunch of oversensitive, overcoddled. It's vile to me. It's Wednesday on the Steve Gruber Show.
Getting your day started with news from around the state and around the world. Common Sense Radio. This is the Steve Gruber Show.
There was beer all over the dance floor.
All right, it's Wednesday, and welcome back. I'm going to give you a shocking little bit of this statistic. I'm going to tell you why. I told you a bit about this before the break, but before we get to Todd Wood, our friend from the Washington Times, let me just share this with you. It seems that more than 7 out of 10 of our young people here in Michigan, 7 out of 10 of our young people here in Michigan are either too fat or too stupid to serve in the U.S. military. No, I'm serious. Do I put things into understandable terms for you? Do I make it simple enough for you? They're either too fat or too stupid to serve in the military. A new report released this week says 71% of Michigan residents between 17 and 24 are not qualified for military service because of obesity or a lack of a proper education. You consider that for a moment. Our next guest, Todd Wood, journalist for the Washington Times. Todd, welcome back to the program.
Oh, thanks for having me back on, Steve.
It's a little bit shocking that we're too heavy or haven't gone to school long enough to get a job with the Army, isn't it?
Yeah, actually, I'm not shocked because our education system is going down the tubes, and the obesity issue is real. You know, when I come back in the States all the time, you can see it. I mean, people are way overweight.
Grotesque. Yeah.
What's that?
People are grotesquely overweight. It's just, it's, I mean, do they not have mirrors? I mean, do they not?
I don't know. I think it's just a group thing. You know, they just think they're like everybody else, and it's not the case. The rest of the world is not like that.
No, very, very much true. Shifting gears to where you wanted to touch on a couple of things today. In one of the articles you've been working on, you say China, who is, according to Donald Trump, about to throttle us on the Trans-Pacific Partnership deal, says it's a horrible deal, is about to hit us someplace else that might hurt, and that is in space, you say. What are you talking about?
Well, the Chinese have been developing now for over a decade a anti-satellite capability, and the U.S. military and our economy is heavily dependent on satellites for communications, for early warning, for threat assessment, for imagery, for intelligence, for a whole variety of things. And obviously, asymmetric warfare works, and they have been attempting to develop a capability to degrade that. And they have made a lot of progress, and they just launched another anti-satellite weapon last week. The U.S. says they're developing capabilities to counter this, but it's getting harder and harder. So it's a problem. It's
one of the places that America has held the leadership role in the world since we stepped foot on the moon, I think in July of 1969, if I was going to guess. We've been in a race with the Russians for years. When we took the lead, we've been in the lead for a long time. And, surrendering what we do in space and so forth on any level, to me, is concerning.
Yeah, and space is going to be weaponized. There's no doubt about it. So, we might as well quit pretending that's not going to happen and make sure we protect the vital capabilities that we have through our satellites. Because, if we lose that edge, then, we're just another army on the battlefield trying to find the enemy.
So what do you think we do to counterbalance it? Here's the problem. You've got Rand Paul at the debate last night criticizing Marco Rubio because Rubio says we need to spend, $800 billion, maybe $1 trillion to put the military back where it belongs. And Rand Paul, of course, criticizing that. The Democrats, of course, do not want to spend that kind of money in the military. It doesn't buy them enough votes that way. Anyhow, so where do we go from here? If you don't have the money and the ability to compete with the Chinese, what do you do?
Well, that's the whole issue. That it's not a question of can we. It's that we have to, because at some point they will hold kind of a trump card over us, and they're talking about putting satellites in orbit that are just orbiting bombs, nuclear weapons, or electromagnetic pulse, which one of those over the United States would incredibly cripple our economy and ability to survive.
So hold on right there. Hold on right there, because I want to, because you say it's imperative that we do this. And yet out in the campaign for president for 2016 on both the Republican and the Democratic side, there's a great divide on how we fund the military. In fact, let's hear a part of that clip between Rand Paul and Marco Rubio last night. Go.
Is it fiscally conservative to have $1 trillion expenditure? We're not talking about giving people back their tax money. He's talking about giving people money they didn't pay. It's a welfare transfer payment. So here's what we have. Is it conservative to have $1 trillion in transfer payments, a new welfare program that's a refundable tax credit? Add that to Marco's plan for $1 trillion in new military spending, and you get something that looks to me not very conservative. Thank you.
All right, we'll leave it. You see, the point there is that Rand Paul is among those attacking military spending as not being conservative. And I've been hearing this lately, and this is something else that concerns me. Oh, that's not conservative enough. Really? What if it's just common sense, and it doesn't fit your neat little explanation of conservatism? What if it's just common sense? Because everything conservative, you don't get 100% a litmus test on this deal, Todd, and so it concerns me that there are too many people that are extreme right or extreme left that are intransigent when it's time to do real work and getting things done.
Yeah, I agree with you. And if I'm having a little trouble hearing you, I don't know if I got a bad connection. So if you're having the same, let me know. But obviously the fiscal issue has to be dealt with. But really, it's not military spending; it's entitlements that drives that. And everybody that is a student of that subject knows that for sure.
Well, right, and it's I don't know where we go from here. It concerns me because you can't win an election by telling people the truth. You can't win an election by telling people we have to scale back on Medicaid, we have to scale back on Social Security, we have to scale back on social programs in general, because since 1965 we have spent over $20 trillion, ironically very similar to the national debt, on these social programs. The rate of poverty has not changed in America. Some things are better, but many programs simply do not work. But they go on year after year after year. But you cannot tell people the truth because they will accuse you of pushing old people over the cliff in a wheelchair like the Democrats did the last time around. It's a very difficult conversation, Todd.
Yeah. Again, I'm having trouble hearing you, but the fiscal issues I've been talking about for a long time, because they lead to, economic weakness leads to military weakness, and we're seeing that all over the world.
All right. Well, Todd, I'm sorry you're having trouble hearing. We're hearing you just great, but I'm going to let you go because if you can't hear me, well, then you're not getting the full conversation. That's all right. I greatly appreciate it. We'll talk to you soon, of course. Todd Wood on here, regular basis, journalist for the Washington Times. And as we look at, competing with the Chinese as they intend to move into space, militarized space, as Todd says, how do we do that when our spending priorities are all sorts of screwed up? And also take into account the Trans-Pacific Partnership, which does not include the Chinese at this point, but will. Everybody knows it sometime in the near future. The Chinese expect to be folded into that deal. And, Donald Trump saying this is such a horrible deal that doesn't address the number one problem when it comes to people that are attacking the United States, and that is currency manipulation. The number one weapon used by foreign countries to hurt America and take away jobs is currency manipulation. And he says, unfortunately, that is not addressed anywhere in the 5,544-page deal. It's longer than the Bible. And he says nobody understands it. How could they possibly? It's Wednesday on the Steve Gruber Show. We'll be right back.
touch with Michigan and the world.
Those high heels with that sundress, turquoise heart hanging round your neck.
All right, it's Wednesday, and welcome back to it. It's the Steve Gruber Show.
Keep on drinking till you make me drunk.
The hotline number is 888-900-9966, 888-900-9966. It is Veterans Day, as I mentioned. November the 11th, Veterans Day, 2015. Make sure you take time today to reach your hand out. You see a veteran, shake their, and it doesn't have to be on Veterans Day. It's just a good reminder every year to extend your hand to the men and women that serve this country. There are less of them today than there have been in a very long time. And that's why this discussion on funding the military during the Republican debate last night is very interesting to me. America has survived through strength, peace through strength, trust and verify. So this day, this Veterans Day 2015, make sure you take a moment to reach out to people and say, I appreciate the service. And when you hear that 71% of Michigan residents between ages 17 and 24 wouldn't even qualify for military service because of obesity, a lack of proper education, and one more thing, trouble with the law. It's funny how the mentality here, the entitlement mentality has led to devastating results for everyone, but mostly our kids. You see, kids who think they're owed everything under the sun apparently turn out to be spoiled brats. They're not an asset in the long run, even in the short run. Spoiled brats considerably seem to me to be a liability. Wouldn't it be interesting if wouldn't it be interesting to do in America what is done in Israel? Compulsory military service for everyone 18 years of age. What do you think about that? It would give the people an appreciation of their nation. It would give them an appreciation of the hard work that goes into the military. It would give them an appreciation of when you should go to war and when you should not. Unfortunately, that, of course, would probably never happen in America. But I think it would be just one hell of an educational process if it did. But yeah, 71% of those in Michigan, 17 to 24, do not qualify today. And military service is a ladder for the middle class, for tens of thousands of Americans. It was a way for people in tough circumstances to climb their way out. It was a way for people in tough circumstances to join the Marines, join the Air Force, join the Navy, join the U.S. military, and get your way out of tough circumstances. Get an education, learn discipline, learn respect, learn authority. That's what the military has been for decades for so many. And now, 7 out of 10 of the young people here in Michigan, way too either obesity and a lack of a proper education. 71% of Michigan residents between 17 and 24 not qualified for military service. That's a sad, sad statistic. Another bad statistic is how many veterans commit suicide each day here in this country because of, the pressure, PTSD, a variety of reasons. Congressman Dan Kildee joining us now from the 5th District. He is introducing legislation to help curb veteran suicides here in this country. Congressman, welcome to the program.
Hey, thanks for having me on. And to all the veterans out there, thank you for your service. This is one day we make sure we thank them, but obviously that's something we all should be doing every single day of the year.
I agree with you there, Congressman. We don't have a lot of time here, so tell me, what is this bill and what do you think you can accomplish?
Well, what this bill would do would be require the Department of Defense and the VA to, number one, take a look at those units within the military that have had very high rates of suicide, determine if there are particular aspects of the deployment for those units that might be unique characteristics that relate to those high rates of suicide, but most importantly, would require the DOD and VA to track those returned veterans and reach out to them when we see a spike in suicide within a particular unit to try to get to them before they're in a position where it might be too late. You know, there's one unit, the 27 Marine Corps unit, that was deployed in 2008. 13 members of that unit have committed suicide. So it's either some factor related to their deployment or the fact that suicide among a particular unit might trigger suicides within that unit. Whatever the cause is, we need to get our arms around it and do what we can to prevent this horrible outcome, basically coming from the invisible wounds of war that we don't see when these men and women come home.
I couldn't agree more. Yeah, the invisible wounds and the problems that plague veterans coming back, suicide rates, higher levels of homelessness than the general population, higher levels of unemployment than the general population, and the homelessness and the unemployment and the pressure and all these things, obviously, I would think play a role in that final sad statistic as well.
Yeah, they do. And, you know, we ask a lot of these young men and women. They do the work that makes our democracy work. They put themselves in harm's way, and we have to do more than just hold a parade for them when they come home. We have to make sure that whatever their wounds might be, visible or invisible, we commit to take care of them. And this is one area where we've just been missing it. And so my legislation would direct the Defense Department and the VA to get to work and get cracking on solving this problem.
Well, Congressman, I think that it's a common sense bill, and I think that it makes sense to try to address the suicide rates among retired American military, or even current for that matter. And I appreciate you taking time to stop in and share that with us. We'll keep track of your bill, and I certainly hope that you have success with that, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Congressman Dan Kildee, everybody, from the 5th District, a Democrat. Legislation he is introducing to help curb veteran suicides. And you know what? That makes sense to me. It's Wednesday on the Steve Gruber Show.